This is Irena from Gwendid, and you're listening to the Metal Pit Podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit Podcast. I'm your host, Blake. Now, I'm getting over a cold, so excuse my voice. It may go in and out sometimes. But anyway, if you're new to the podcast, we dive into the albums and bands and stories that shaped metal. And I'm your host, Blake, like I said, and we'll explore the legends and anthems that keep the metal flame burning alive. Please visit our website, themetalpit.org, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Metal Pit. And for podcast related stuff, we have a website for that, which is themetalpitpodcast.com. And we also have Instagram and Facebook for that, which is at the Metal Pit Podcast. And you can also find our YouTube channel at the Metal Pit 666, where you can listen to the audio version of the podcast in case you don't have Spotify or iTunes or whatever you might listen to us on. So my guest today is Lance Hall, who's been on a couple episodes, or maybe one. Sorry, I'm confused. But anyway, Lance, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Blake. How about you?
Oh, good, except for my voice.
Yeah, it gives you that raspy feel, you know,
Yes.
that
Okay,
metal on metal feel, you know.
Yes, that's right, and that's what we're going to talk because I've wanted to do. I'm Canadian,
Yeah.
and I've wanted to do an Anvil album for a long time, but there's a lot of people that don't seem to like Anvil or know much about Canadian music because a lot of the metal pit writers are either from the United States or from Europe. Some of them, a couple, or one in Australia and stuff like that. Even though I probably just didn't ask them either. Maybe they do know, but I knew that you live northern United States, so you can tell a story, I guess. But how do you know Canadian bands more better than other Americans might know? I guess.
Growing up here where I am in northern Vermont, I'm about 30 minutes from the border. I can be in Montreal in about 2.5 hours. And in the old days, we used to hook up our cable to this, for our cable TV, we'd hook it up to a stereo and we could get stations from all over the place. And lo and behold, we could get Shom FM out of Montreal. And that became our classic rock station. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we had all the Zeppelin and Who and all that stuff. But they, of course, being Canadian, they had to play Canadian artists. And that's where we got introduced to, Street Heart and Prism and Trooper and bands like that, Jerry Doucette was another one we used to hear all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So it was fabulous. It was great.
And when did you? Now Anvil probably wasn't on the radio, most likely. So when did
N-
you first discover Anvil?
I
If
want
I
to say it
remember.
was early 80s, 83 maybe, 83, 84. I started reading you're reading Circus and Kerrang and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, and I saw Anvil there, and I remember vividly buying this album out of the used rack at a little store down in Montpelier. It's called Bookspieler Music. I believe they're still in business. Um, and we used to go there. That was another place where we would buy albums, and he would get used albums from everywhere. And I remember buying it in there for like $5. And yeah,
Now, okay, so for me, I'm in Canada. I'm in Ontario, Canada. Now I'm only 2 hours from the American border, by the way. But of course, like you mentioned, the Canadian radio stations had to play like 33% or something like that, Canadian artist or something like
right.
that. I can't remember exactly. So yeah, so we would hear, so I would listen to not Montreal, of course, but I'm in Ontario, so whatever, my stations in Toronto or London. And so yes, you would hear April Wine and Headpins and stuff, Street Heart, like you mentioned, Triumph,
Yeah,
stuff like that. And Rush, of course, but I was never a big
right.
Rush fan, but of course Rush was always there.
Yeah.
Um, so I discovered heavy metal in 1982, I guess, when I heard the Number of the Beast, and then because Anvil was probably around before that, but I never didn't listen to that music because you couldn't hear it. You wouldn't. There was nothing on TV yet about it, no music video
Right.
shows yet, and of course they wouldn't play Anvil on top 40 radio stations or anything. But anyway, I don't. So I don't. I'm pretty sure Metal and Metal is the first album I heard of them, but I can't really recall. I'm sure it was through because Canada had some metal magazines too, some smaller ones, And I'm sure they had stuff in there about them because they probably had to still have the same percentage of Canadian content in there. And
Right.
that's how I discovered them. And so yeah, so Metal on Metal and Forged in Fire, they're two of my favorite albums of all time, really, even though a lot of people don't like Anvil. But they have 21 studio albums.
Yeah.
And people like Lars Ulrich and of Metallica and Scott Ian has said that Anvil was influences on them in the early days. And even on the thrash moment, even though I mean, you can maybe hear some of that in here or on these albums, but I never really considered Anvil thrash at all. Just fast, I guess you could say, on most of the songs. And I will say, so if anybody is listening that doesn't know who Anvil is, of course, they formed in 1978 by Steve Lips Kudlow and drummer Rob Reiner, and those two are still in the band today. Like I say, they have 21 studio albums. Their last one came out this year, and I have that written. One and Only it was called. And I suppose you realize this, but every Anvil album has 3 words in the title.
I did not realize that.
And the first and last word always start with the same letter.
Huh. I
So
did.
Metal on Metal, Forged in Fire, Hope in Hell, or One
Ah,
and Only. Now I don't know if there's a wording for that 3 word thing where
yeah.
but I don't know why they start Hard and Heavy, their first one also. So I'm not sure why they did that, but yeah, every album has a 3 word title and always has the first and last word start with the same letter.
That's cool. I did not, I had no clue on that. But yeah, I'm looking through now and yep, you're absolutely right. I
Yeah.
was fortunate enough, I got to interview Lips. I think it was when Legal at Last came out in 2020.
Mhm.
Dustin got me an interview with him. Great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, and did you see the documentary?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
yes, I have seen it, and I've read the book as well. Yeah.
Yes.
It's-
So that was like, even if you don't like Anvil, I think it's an interesting movie
yeah,
documentary where they're playing for like 10 people or whatever sometimes.
right.
And I'm sure that still happens sometimes. But yeah, because they never made the success. Now, now for me, I'm thinking, okay, it's because they're Canadian. Like I think Metal on Metal and Forged to Fire are just as good as any of the other. I mean, maybe not as good as the Number of the Beast album or say Master of Puppets, but I mean they're up there with other bands. And I thought they should have had more success. And I'm thinking it's probably because they're in Canada. And of course, back then they didn't have the internet and stuff like that. So they couldn't use that to their advantage. So do you have any uh, thoughts on why you think they didn't make it bigger than maybe they should have?
You know, as I was listening to this album, I'm thinking, why wasn't this bigger? They had everything lined up. Chris Tangarides produced for them, who was a big
Mhm.
name producer.
Yes.
Uh, Fabulous songs and everything. But then I looked at the year of 1982 in metal. Well, you had Maiden Number of the Beast came out. This came out in April of 82.
Hmm.
Uh, Maiden had Number of the Beast come out in March of 82. Priest had Screaming for Vengeance, Scorpions Blackout, Rainbow Straight Through the Eyes. Triumph was Never Surrender, Y&T Black Tiger, and that was Y&T. And that was just a few.
Yeah.
That's a pretty tough lineup to crack,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, even
Uh,
with other Canadian bands like the thrash bands, Exciter and Razor,
yeah,
like they were big at the time too, but they also never made it like they had one of the first Exciter had one of the first three, I guess I would call it, thrash metal albums with Metallica's
yeah,
Kill 'Em All and Slayer Show No Mercy,
yeah,
their debut album. And they were probably just as good, but again, I think being in Canada didn't help them back then.
right.
But
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting, I mean, look at the Tragically Hip. If they play in
mm,
Montreal, they're going to sell out the Bell Center in seconds. This is back
yes,
in their heyday. They're going to
yes.
sell out the Bell Center in seconds. I saw them in a small club down here in Vermont.
Hmm.
You know,
And like
I don't
yeah,
get it.
like Rush and Triumph made big success.
Broke
But
through.
even some of the other groups we might talk about later, like April Wine, they were popular in Canada, and you might like them.
Yeah.
But I don't really think they got much success in the States. or like
not a ton. There was one station down in Texas that played a lot of that stuff, and I think there was bands like Helix and Killer Dwarfs did really good down in Texas. But I think that's how influential DJs could be back in the day,
yeah, yeah,
because they would play the albums and people would hear them and like them. Now, why nobody else jumped on the bandwagon, I don't know.
yeah. I don't know if like see, I wanted to listen to some Canadian bands. We'll get into that later when we do our list because we're going to do our top 10 Canadian hard rock heavy metal bands.
Yeah,
And so I grew up on the Canadian hard rock, which we already covered a little bit, like April Warren Headpins and stuff. But that's just, and I wanted to like some Canadian bands, but for heavy metal, there's not a lot. And even though
no,
there's lots of Canadian heavy metal bands out there, Unleash the Archers is pretty good. But I mean,
yeah,
there's just none that really grabbed me and like it did back then. Because back then, I mean, somebody I would say Anvil and Exciter and Razor were my favorite bands or whatever,
hmm
alongside your Metallicas and Slayers and stuff. But yeah, they just never ever made it big. And now,
yeah.
of course, it's like nobody's really making it big anymore. If
No. Yeah, I mean, even back then, you had Annihilator was in the mix there.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, great
Sword was a
bands.
good Canadian band, but they only had
Hmm.
two albums or maybe three albums now. I think they're
Right.
20 years later or something.
Yeah.
But
You guys,
anyway,
you guys did give us Nickelback though.
well, I never really liked Nickelback, so
Nah, I was never. I can't. I don't want to say they suck. They weren't my cup of tea. They had a couple tunes though that I really, really liked. But
see,
yeah,
I didn't even like. I remember I visited one of our writers, Eric, here on the Metal Pit. He lives in Virginia, and I went to visit him and went to a bar to see he knew somebody that was playing in a band, and they played hard rock songs, cover songs mostly. And the guy comes over to the microphone because Eric told him that I was from Canada and stuff. And he goes, "Do you like Nickelback?" And I didn't even know who the hell they were. I never listened. I said, "You mean are they a U.S. college football team or something like the
oh,
Nickelbacks?"
good answer.
No, I was also drinking at the time, but anyway, but I didn't know who Nickelback was because I didn't listen to the radio at that point. I would just
Yeah.
listen to heavy metal then by that time. But anyway, that was just funny that he said that to me, and I thought, "Who's Nickelback?" Because I didn't even know.
That's a great. I love that. That's a great answer.
Okay, so we might as well start talking about the album. We're going to do Metal on Metal, which of course is
Yeah.
the second album by Anvil. Hard and Heavy was their first one, and this is probably their most popular one or most well-known one, and probably one of the earliest albums that had the word metal in the title. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
or songs too. I know Judas Priest had Metal Gods. And I'm not sure if there was what other groups might have had songs with the word metal back then. I know Manowar probably has a few now
Yeah.
over the years. But anyway, let's start. And so, what do you think of the title track, Metal on Metal?
Instant classic. It made a Simpsons episode, so you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah,
Um, and I love the one lyric, metal on metal, it's the only way, to hell with tomorrow, let's live for today. That was everybody's attitude that was into this music back in 1982. This was the year I graduated high school. I was 17 years old. Yeah, you know, this struck the nerve.
yeah. And I saw that Simpsons thing today. I don't know if I would have seen the episode when it came out. I don't remember, of course, because I kind of stopped watching The Simpsons. I don't know what season they're in now.
Yeah.
But that was season 21, I think it was, episode 5. So I watched it today. And oh, there it is. Bart was skateboarding on a frying pan or something like that,
Yeah.
cookie sheet or something. And they were playing Metal on Metal. So I thought that was cool. Yeah. And I guess a later song, I'll get to that later when you get to the song. And if you don't mention it, hopefully I remember it. But yeah, Metal on Metal, I like the lines. It's what oh, wait, sorry. Metal on Metal blows back your hair, caves in your face.
Yeah.
It's like this is a song Manowar probably wish they wrote because this typical Manowar kind of lyrics about metal and I always people might think that Lips isn't a good guitarist, but I always thought he's a great guitarist. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
licks and little licks and solos in this
Hmm.
and they were a four-piece band at that time.
Right.
And I think they still are currently. Like currently, But back then you had Dave Dixon on, wait,
Dave Allison.
Dave Allison on guitar,
Yeah,
Ian Dixon on bass. Sorry, that's right.
right.
And then of course Rob Reiner and Lips. And now Lips and Rob Reiner are still in it. And I think I
Yeah.
have the current lineup here. Where did it go? Sorry. Oh, Chris Robertson is on the bass. So maybe there's only three right now.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, then we go to Mothra.
Uh, I love Killer Story. This is a great story song. I'm a huge fan of these old sci-fi movies. Mothra is only second to Godzilla in film appearances in those old sci-fi movies.
Mhm.
Um, I've always been a fan. I love the story. I love the title. I love the subject. I think it's great. Great
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a little different
Right.
kind of when you think of Anvil, you just think of sexual innuendo songs.
There are plenty of them on here.
Yeah, but so it was kind of different for them, even though it was early. But I mean, they really, I guess they might have tackled some other stuff later on. I know they had a song about zombies and whatever, stuff like that, and aliens, I think. But yeah, they do kind of stick to their sexual innuendo songs. But yeah, it was a great song. And Rob Reiner's drumming I think is awesome too, and it really
Mhm.
stands out on this one. And well, I mean, they're still doing it today. Like, I mean, they never made it. That's one good thing about Anvil is they never just quit.
No,
Like they're still doing it, and like they like doing it, and they don't care if there's only 100 people at a show or if there's 1,000 or whatever. They're just now. The thing is, I've never seen them live. Have you ever seen them live?
I have not. I
Oh,
haven't
okay.
seen them live. Yeah.
Okay, I forgot. This is the closest I come to see Anvil live was when I was probably 17 or 18. I worked at a cheese factory and I was looking out the window, and this is out in the country where this cheese factory is, but I saw a van coming up to the corner. I was looking out the window because it wasn't working, I guess. And the van turned the corner, on the back of the van it had a spare tire and it said Anvil on it.
Huh. The
So they were
Anvil
going
van,
to
huh?
some small club show somewhere in Ontario. But I always remembered that, seeing that when I was at
That's
work.
cool.
That's the closest I came to seeing them. I
Yeah.
just never got around to seeing them live, even though they're still doing it. So maybe there's still a chance.
Yeah.
Okay, then we get to track three, which is called "Stop Me," and I'll let
Yeah.
you. What do you think of this one?
5 minutes, 29 seconds. This is the longest track on the album. Has Dave Allison on vocals, who's in the band from 78 to 89, who unfortunately passed away just a little while ago in September of this past
Mhm.
year. I remember seeing that when that happened. Um, you know, it's a to me, I'm reading the lyrics, I'm listening to this. It's a dark tune. It's dark subject. It's about groupies. Ironically enough, it was the only single from the album. But this is a dark tune. The way it's presented, the way it's sung, the way it's played. Not what you'd think.
I don't think I even realized that Dave Allison was the singer until today
Yeah.
when I was researching it. Maybe I did back then because I used to buy vinyl, so it probably said it in there, but maybe I just forgot. But yeah, it's the most. It's kind of a ballad like song, even though it's darker, and it's kind of like a love song in a way. And so a lot of people probably aren't gonna like. Now I don't like ballads, but I don't mind this. Maybe it's Dave's vocals because I don't know. They've only played, according to that setlist website, they've played the song a few times, but I don't know if any were done with lip singing or if it was all done
Yeah.
when Allison was still in the band or something like that. I don't know. Since I've never seen them live, I couldn't say anything. But yeah, I still don't, even though I don't like ballads or whatever, I don't mind this song, and it's different than most of the other part of the album, or the band,
Yeah.
really. So not much of a ballad kind of band, really.
I was drawn to the darkness of it.
Yeah.
But what do you
Um,
think of track four, the instrumental, March of the Crabs?
well, I think that's kind of an awesome song because I was thinking this was a classical remake, but that comes in a later album where they do Flight of the Bumblebee.
Yeah.
Well, I was confusing that. I was trying to find that. But what I did read, I don't know if you have this, but I'm going to say this anyway. But supposedly it's named after, where is it? It's played. Oh, let's see. Lip said in an interview with somebody that He was intrigued by the way his fingers moved up and down the fretboard when he played it, and he thought it looked like a crab.
I never heard that. That's cool.
Excuse
I
me, coughing off air.
uh,
Go ahead.
I wondered with it being an instrumental, if they were doing a slight nod to Rush, because Rush was known for instrumentals on their albums, usually much longer, works, but showed up in 2009 in the Brutal Legend video game as well. So that's kind of cool.
Yes. Sorry, my voice is screwing up on me.
You need a shot of wild turkey or something,
But anyway, yes, it was a great instrumental, and it's kind of, I guess that's kind of thrashy a little bit, actually, that
Yeah.
one that gets
Yeah.
close to it. But anyway, yes. Okay. Sorry. Then we get into some sexual innuendo songs, I think, here. Jackhammer.
Yeah. Track 5, this would have been the side one closer if you're listening on the album. The thing that really jumped out on me on this was Rob's drumming. I thought it was really massive. The riff, to me, this is like if Ted Nugent and AC/DC had a baby. The riff is almost like AC/DC is. The solo, when he goes in, is almost like Nugent. And I read an interview with Allison, said back in the day, they played a lot of Nugent covers when they were first forming, and when they were like a bar band. And I just wondered if some of it came through in this tune. Like I said, if Ted Nugent and AC/DC had a baby, it would be called Jackhammer, to my ears. A great tune. Like I said, Rob's drumming is off the charts.
Yeah, maybe they named this song because of his drumming when they did the last one because of the guitar. But yeah, Jackhammer.
Yeah.
And this one, there's lots of great licks and solos in here too. And I guess I didn't write down what the sexual innuendo is.
It's there, trust me. Just about all these songs are about sex.
The rest of them except maybe the last one.
Right. Yeah.
Then we get into Heat Sink. And this is another one about sex, I guess. So what do you think of Heat Sink?
This was a banger of a track. The line I took out of this, my love will last within your cast, your body is my mold. It's like, oh my God, that's great. Yeah, totally more sex. But a great tune. Of the 10 tracks on this album, I could not even find one that I thought was the weakest track on the album. I mean, you can maybe say something for Marks and Crabs being an instrumental, but still, it's a strong track. I couldn't find a track that I didn't really like on this track. I loved them all.
Yeah, I listen to this album regularly. I'll throw it on once in a while, and I never think about skipping a song or anything, but I listen to it. Being that Canadian thing again, where I wanted to listen to a Canadian band, like I listened to it so much.
Yeah.
When I first had it there in '82 or whatever it was that I got it. After I discovered heavy metal and thought there's a Canadian band here. And
right.
Yeah, I listened to it so much that and also with Forged in Fire, like both those albums I listened to. So
I mean, this is kind of a holy trinity of albums with Hard and Heavy and Metal on Metal and Forged in Fire. I mean, that's great triple way to get your career a kick in the pants, which really you got to wonder why it didn't happen.
Yes, that's true. But anyway, okay, so then we get to Tag Team, which is either about wrestling or maybe sex.
In the end, it's about sex. I like this one, kind of heavy, almost kind of Sabbathy. They slowed it down just a little bit, slightly plotting, if you want to use that word. I needed the break myself to kind of catch my breath. I love the song that can mention a camel clutch and a scissor lock, which are great wrestling terms. But in the end, it's about sex.
Yeah, I think they are wrestling fans, so I'm sure that's why it came out there. But yeah, it always has there's two meanings. You can either think that it's about wrestling, like I say, or you can really get into it and think, oh, I think this is about sex instead.
Yeah.
And yes, apologizing me for my throat, my voice here. So I maybe can't say as much as I would like to. Okay, then we'll go to Scenery. And what do you think of Scenery?
More groupies in this song. The thing that jumped out at me, and I even went back and re-listened to it on the intro lick, right around where Lip says, "All right," I heard a snippet of Jumpin' Jack Flash in that lick. And they played again, and after coming out of the solo, and I'm like, wait a minute. I went back and listened to it. To my ears, sounds like Jumpin' Jack Flash. Another killer line out of this song: "The way you look could make your mother sick." I love it.
Yes, and I like the line. I think right before that, actually, it was dyed blonde hair, made makeup packed on thick, or whatever.
Yeah.
And yes, I
The
guess
way,
it's about a girl
yep,
that
not a girl.
looks good on his arm or something like that. I guess
Yeah,
we're talking here.
yep.
I
Wants the
like the kind
scenery.
of crunching kind of guitar riffs in this one. Maybe this
Yeah.
was also a little bit in the thrash area.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, give it a listen and tell me if you hear Jumpin' Jack Flash.
oh, I should do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
Track 9, "Tease Me, Please Me." This is my favorite track on the album. My note here says, "Holy Judas Priest meets Foghat." Uh, this was, I love this track. It was metal, but it was melodic. And I tried to remember the minute I heard it, I had like a little bit of an extra sliver of memory. And I may or may not have played this song at a high school dance uh, back in 1983. I was known as a heavy metal DJ. You hired me to do a dance. You're gonna get a couple of metal tracks thrown in, and I almost remember playing this at a high school dance. But great track, great track. This is my favorite track on the album.
Yes, and I think that it's mine too. I wrote down one of my favorite Anvil songs of all time is this one, "Tease Me,
Yeah.
Please Me." Because yeah, I love the opening licks and riffs and the shredding guitars and everything. And yes, it's a great song.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorites. And then we finish off the album with 666, which I guess I don't think this is about sex at all.
No, now we're doing a devil worship, and they mentioned Hitler and Manson in here. This made the soundtrack to Stephen King's 2017 rendition of It.
Yes.
Uh, and I looked, Number of the Beast came out March 22nd. Metal on Metal came out April 15th. So I don't, it's sort of ironic. We have 666 songs on two albums, but I don't think either one was copying the other because they had to be making the albums. And,
Yeah.
Anvil recorded this in Toronto. I can't remember where Maiden recorded Number of the Beast. Probably, what was it? Bahamas, maybe, or something, or England or
That
something
might have been in
like
England,
that.
that one, maybe the Number of the Beast.
So
And
I
yeah,
think it was just more of an irony thing here.
yeah. I don't know. Like I guess I would have just thought, oh, probably they did get it from Iron Maiden, but maybe they didn't. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's ever. And there's nothing wrong if they did get it from them.
Yeah, I just think that with the
But
timing of the albums, they
yeah,
they probably wouldn't have known,
yeah, that's right. Because I didn't really think about the dates.
Yeah. Yeah, they came out within like a month of each other.
Hmm. Unless they wrote the song really, really fast or something.
Yeah.
But yes, but anyway, yeah, it's a different song compared to the other ones, of course. It's darker. And
Yeah.
they don't really deal with Satan
Yeah.
stuff very much in Anvil, I don't
Right.
think.
I was just looking up. Maiden recorded Number of the Beast at Battery Studios in London. So I mean they're an ocean apart.
Yeah,
So
right. So I don't know. Yeah, so and it's still a good song too. I like that one.
yeah. Great,
Uh,
great irony here in this. So
uh
but
okay. So
yeah,
yes,
that's all 10 tracks right there. Like I said, there's not a throwaway in any of them. There's not a
and
throwaway track on this album.
yeah, and like I said before, I love Forge and Fire too. Those two albums are great. Free as a Wind song on Forge and Fire. I love that's one of my favorite Anvil songs too, that one.
Mm.
And I was watching some old videos today on YouTube of Anvil because I don't really watch videos that much, but most of the Anvil ones are just live ones. But well, first we'll rate this album, but then I just wanted to mention some of their other songs. So what would you rate this album out of 10?
Oh, this album's a 10. This album's a 10. And everything down through it, the cover, Dean Motter, who did the cover art, won a Juno Award for Best Album Graphics in '83. So
Yeah, I never knew that either till
yeah,
today.
right. You know, it came out on a Canadian. You know, the one thing that might have held it back was it did come out on a Canadian label, Attic Records. You know, wasn't huge at the time. They had some big acts. You know, they had Leanne, Triumph, Gatto, Haywire, a bunch of big acts on there. They released the first couple Creed albums up in Canada.
Huh?
You know, maybe if they'd have been on, you know, what was Priest on? Columbia, or Scorpions was on Mercury. You know,
Yeah.
maybe if they'd have been on a bigger label with a little bit bigger push, who knows? Like I said,
Yeah.
82, that's a tough lineup to crack
Yeah.
into with those
That's
albums that came out. But this one, I would put this up against any of these albums.
yeah. So would I. But and like I watched a little interview today with Lips and Rob Reiner with somebody. They asked him why they didn't make it big, and I think they kind of blamed it on their management
That too, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
they said they got a manager who managed like Aerosmith and stuff like this, but they should have went with a younger manager that I guess he clicked on with Anthrax and made them big, and they should have went
Right.
with that guy instead because probably the guy with Aerosmith and whatever other groups it was that he was managing was too big.
Yeah,
He's
Krebs
a
is
big
his
band.
last name. He's got a great
Yeah,
name, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But
he kind of stiffed him.
so anyway, sure, I'd give it a 10 out of 10 too, because
Yeah,
and I'd probably give Fortune Fire 10 out of 10 also.
yeah, great.
But some of the Anvil, like I've listened to every Anvil album probably that comes out. I probably don't give it as much of a listen as I should, like I did back in the 80s and stuff, but there's always been some great songs.
Yeah.
I don't have the titles of the albums some of these songs are on, but I know some of the, like, I always love the song Show Me Your Tits. Do you know the meaning? Okay, that's an easy meaning, but the do you know what that really means exactly to
I
you?
do not know. Tell me.
Okay. Well, in Canada, whatever year this was, that album, because I would have been on the next album, I think, or the one after that, like 86 or 87, I think. But there was a law thing. Women in Canada were trying to have the rights to go topless at the beach since men
Okay.
could go topless. And so that's what the song is about, is letting that Lips thought that women should be able to not have the tops on the beach. So that's what the song is about. Show me your
Okay. The the other fascinating fact that I looked up was when Fast Eddie Clark left Motorhead. I think this would have been around 82, 83. Lemmy wanted Lips and Motorhead, and he turned him down. You know, I mean,
Oh,
that's staying
that's,
true to, you know,
yeah.
your feelings on everything. You know, that takes a
Yes.
lot of integrity to do that.
Yeah.
You
And I
know,
wonder if he ever regrets it.
you know what? I can't say as I know the man, but and the way that I talk, you know, the interview I did with him, I don't
Mhm.
think so. I think he just lives his life as to what it is, and you know, I don't think he looks back a whole lot.
Yeah. And actually, I forgot to mention it, but before they changed their name to Anvil, they were going to be called Lips.
Right? Yep.
It was
They were
believed.
Lips for the first few years of the band.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So he wants to do his own thing. And I'm sure he thought if he joined Motorhead, he's not going to get to do anything
Right.
except
Yeah.
what Lemmy wanted him to do or whatever. But
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, so another song I like, can't remember what album this is on, but Shut the Fuck Up. I think that's a
Yeah.
great song. I love that song. And I watched a video today for Bitch in the Box, which is about your GPS girl and your
You're right. Yeah, I'd forgot. I've forgotten about
and
that
it
one too.
was hilarious kind of song. And on one of the earlier albums there was a song called Toe Jam, which was like a heavy metal square dancing song. Hilarious. And of course, Blood on the Ice, which is about hockey.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the recent ones, Daggers in Rome, I thought that was a great song too. And that's on one of
Yeah, these guys have been around so long. You said it 21 albums. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, the only bands I could think of, you know, are like a Cheap Trick or maybe a Kiss for career longevity, you know, and
the.
just probably even Cheap Trick for just sticking to their guns and just doing it. And that's what
Yeah.
Anvil is doing, you know?
Yes. And yeah, and they're still going. It's they said it's like their hated day job.
Yeah, exactly.
but but yeah, they're still because the guy that interviewed him, it was I'm not sure what year this interview was. It was just a short interview, but it was
Yeah.
after that movie came out.
Right.
And so I think maybe it was right at that time. But he asked them what they've been doing, and I'm thinking, did you not research? They just make albums and tour. That's what they've been doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's what they do, you know?
But anyway, okay. So, but yeah, so I think like I'm Canadian. I know some people don't like Anvil and whatever. And I don't know. I read somebody's review saying that he's not a good singer, but I'm thinking like unless you're Dio or Bruce Dickinson or Halford or whatever, like everybody, you just sing how you sing. Like,
Yeah.
like I think he's got a great voice for the Anvil songs myself. Anyway, I don't know. And he's playing lead guitar too. He's up there doing solos and stuff too, and singing. So
I was just reading, I've got this collector's guide to heavy metal by Martin Popoff. I was reading his review for it, and he says Mothra kills Godzilla, which I think he's referring to the Blue Oyster Cult song. And he says 666 makes the number of the beast look like America, Bread, and Poco sharing a hug. A hug. Oh,
I had all those books by Martin Popoff back then too. Like
yeah.
the I don't know. I think I have the 500 best heavy metal songs of all time. I should have got
Right.
out to see where metal of
Those
metal.
collector's guides are great. I've got the 70s, 80s,
Yeah,
90s, and the 2000 ones, and they're fabulous stuff.
yeah.
Fabulous research.
Okay, so so we've never seen them live, like I said, so
Yeah.
we don't have anything to talk about there. So we'll get to our list, and I wanted to do top 10 Canadian hard rock slash heavy metal bands. So whatever you want to do, I guess I'll let you go first so I can rest my voice and
Yeah.
hopefully finish it
Take a
off.
break and I'll just, run through this kind of quickly. I had a bunch that were bubbling under my list. I just got to give them a little bit of a shout out because these are groups that, again, I'm going back to my high school years, and just out of high school. Uh, so these aren't my top 10. These are bubbling under, like
Yes.
Queen City Kids, Trooper, Prism, Honeymoon Suite, Kick-Axe, fabulous bands. Number 10, a relative newcomer, but I love this band. I believe they're out of Vancouver. Theory of a Dead Man.
Mhm.
Just the video for Bad Girlfriend is killer. And I think they're a great band. Number 9, and I had a hard time. I kind of shuffled this list a few times, but they landed here because this is where they landed. Red Rider. Always been a fan of Red Rider. I mean, who cannot like Lunatic Fringe? The album that I love on there is the most is Neruda. I think Neruda is a fabulous album. Number 8 is Helix.
Mhm.
Just a great band, top to bottom. Number 7, The Tragically Hip. Should have been. I have seen these guys live. They were really, really good. And the fact that they were so huge in Canada and so unknown here in the States is just absolutely criminal.
Yeah.
Number 6, Bachman Turner Overdrive. So I'm
Mm.
open for Van Halen on the 5150 tour. I would have taken another hour of BTO and an hour less of Van Halen, and that's not a knock on Van Halen. That's how freaking good BTO was. Number 6, Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush. I mean, my lord, their cover of Roadhouse Blues is phenomenal, and all the original stuff they did. Uh, Number 4, Loverboy. Yeah, it's poodle
So
rock, but I love them. Number 3, April Wine. Just one of those groups that, again, were huge in Texas. They were huge in our area. I've got all the albums. I like them. Number 2, Street Heart. Just, Kenny Shields, another one who passed away a few years ago. Street Heart was one of those bands when I heard one of their songs come on, their cover of Under My Thumb, they own it. If I hear any of their tracks come on, what's the other one? What was the other track? They had Action, I think. The radio,
Mhm.
it instantly went to 10. And number 1, Blake, much to your lament, this band just was the soundtrack to my teenage years. Rush.
Oh, yeah.
2112 and Hemispheres, I had on an 8-track, and I played those 8 tracks until they broke. And yeah, again, just so many memories, so much of my being is in those lyrics and those songs. You get into uh the album with moving pictures and signals and Tom Sawyer and I'm thinking the other track there, Subdivisions. First time
Mhm.
I saw him was on the Power Windows tour, and I was just blown away. Blown away. Another one I didn't get to mention is Kim Mitchell. Fabulous. Any of the bands he was in. Good
Hmm.
stuff. Like I said, I know my Canadian bands.
Yeah, and you mentioned BTO. They're going on tour.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how old they are, but they're going on
Yeah,
tour.
and who's left of the original members?
I don't know. I don't know, but they're headlining a tour with Headpins,
Yeah, there's another
which
band, Rough Trade,
which has a different female singer than what they did in the
Darby.
80s.
Yeah.
And I think Toronto is the other band, which is also
Hmm.
back playing too,
Yeah.
which is also a female singer too in that
Yeah.
band. But okay, so yeah, my list. So I got some honorable mentions too. Now there's Sacrifice and Razor, which I mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
I like them. I got more hard rock in here because again, like I mentioned before, that's what I listened to before I discovered heavy metal. That's what I was listening to. So I like the hard rock bands, and then metal came along, and I kind of.
Mm.
But I still go back and listen to stuff like you mentioned, April Wine and Killer Dwarfs, Coney
Yeah. There's
Hatch,
another band. Yeah.
Toronto, Lee Aaron. I mean, I love Lee Aaron, but I probably loved her because she was hot. Sorry, but she was.
Right. Yeah.
But
Coney
it's
Hatch,
also,
that's another great name. That
yes,
debut album of theirs was killer.
yes. Now, okay, so my list. So my number 10 is Street Heart. And even though it's really only one, even though I like, you mentioned I'm not sure what album it was, but the Rolling Stones cover and
Yeah.
the action song, but I like their 1982 album, I guess 1982 again, but their self-titled album which was just called Street Heart, but it
Yeah.
had What Kind of Love Is This on it and
Hmm.
Snowbound, One More Time, which I think is also a cover.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I love that album. So they're my number 10, mostly just from that album. I still listen to that album once in a while. My number 9 is the BC band Unleash the Archers, which I mentioned earlier, and they're current,
Yeah.
so they're not one of the old bands here. My number 8 is Teenage Head. Do you remember Teenage Head?
I don't remember Teenage Head.
Okay, they're kind of called punk, even though I don't call them punk, but they just, and again, it's really only one album. They had an album called Some Kind of Fun, which is one of the first albums I ever owned, I think. So I listened to it a lot when I had it, and I still go back and listen to that once in a while. They're more, well, I don't know. Somebody, I don't know if Martin Pobob, but somebody said, or maybe it's on their Spotify, where they're Canada's answer to the Ramones or something like that. It says,
Okay.
even though I don't really consider them sound like the Ramones, but the same kind of attitude, maybe. But the album Some Kind of Fun is a great album. So if you want to check them out, check
I'm
them
gonna
out.
have to.
They do have other albums, but that's really the only one I really got into. Okay, my number 7 is Kick Axe, which you mentioned as one of your
Mm,
extras there. I saw them live a couple times in Stratford, Ontario, at a little club. And
nice.
songs like heavy metal. I think they played heavy metal shuffle twice because they didn't have many songs to play. So
Yeah.
they played that twice. But I love those three albums, and then they did have another one, Rock Your World, I think it was called, which
Yeah.
wasn't bad, but it wasn't as good as the other ones.
Mm,
And then my number 6 is Headpins. And again, they only had like 3 albums, I think, but I love Turn Out Loud album
hmm.
and those 2 albums with Darby Mills singing. My number 5 is Helix.
Yeah.
And they're kind of hair metal. I guess you could call it that or whatever, but I think they're better than they're better than Motley Crue. They're better than all those groups. But again, they're Canadian, so they did have some success in the States with Rock You and Deep Cuts a Knife and stuff like that.
And they did have a young Tracy Lords in one of their videos.
Oh, did they? Oh, that was probably
Yes,
Gimme Good Lovin', probably.
I think so.
Probably,
I'm
yes.
trying to
Because
look it up now, but I remember reading that. Yeah, and the Gimme Good Lovin'. Tracy
there
Lords
was
is
an
in it.
uncensored version,
Yeah.
which I think I have somewhere in VHS. Okay,
Yeah.
my number 4 is Triumph because I loved Rick Emmett and Triumph and Rock and
Yeah.
Roll Machine and Allied Forces album was great. And there's a documentary about Triumph. If people haven't seen that, watch that. It's very interesting. Again, you don't even have to like a band, I don't think, to find it interesting, in their rise and fall and listening to too many people. And then they started playing too many ballad songs and crap like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, I love Triumph. Okay, my number 3 is Exciter, one of those thrash bands I talked about. And I like some of their albums better than like Razor and Sacrifice. I think they're a better band overall. And they're still around, or they're back around again, but I don't really know if they're making a new album or not. Oh, by the way, Sacrifice is making a new album. It's been
Oh,
like
cool.
30 years, but I think they are making a new album. My number two is Annihilator.
Yeah.
Jeff Waters. Now, Jeff Waters is Canadian. I know most of the time the rest of the band isn't Canadian, but I'm calling them Canadian because he's the leader and it's his band, I guess. So
Right.
it's my number.
Alice in Hell's one of my favorite Halloween tracks of all time.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe lots of. He's a great riffer. That guy, that
Yeah.
guitarist, Jeff Waters.
That
And
song
my
is
number
based
one.
on a true story. Do you
Oh,
know that?
Alice in Hell.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I knew that or not.
It's based
Yeah.
on a true story. Sorry. And your number
And
one.
and my number one is Anvil, just because of those two albums again, Metal on Metal, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Just like I mean, Annihilator's a lot of great albums, but I don't know. I would like if somebody said I could only listen to one Canadian band, it would probably be Anvil.
The Anvil.
It's two albums,
Yeah.
but okay.
Yeah.
So that was good. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I
Good
had a
time.
better voice, I'd probably keep talking, but since I don't, I think we'll probably cover it there. If anybody doesn't know Anvil, make sure you check out Metal on Metal or Forged in Fire, or maybe some of these groups. Check out Teenage Head if you don't mind some kind of punkish songs, or Kick Axe. All these groups, I think they should have been better or should have had more success, and they only made like 2 or 3 albums, like Kick Axe and Headpins
Yeah.
or whatever. And when I just saw Helix recently in the summer, and they're still going strong and doing stuff, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another one I didn't mention, Sass Jordan. Listen to High Road Easy. I mean, with Stevie
Yes.
Salas on guitar. Oh my lord. Yeah.
And there's and I mean we could even go into Alanis Morissette, Canadian, but
Yeah.
I guess I mean I like some of her albums too.
I agree. I agree.
And Anne Marie, can't forget. No, okay, I'm kidding. Anne Marie.
Gordon Lightfoot.
Or Burton Cummings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so hopefully you people that are from Canada or from Northern United States will still find this episode enjoyable, and we'll check out Anvil or some of our top 10 lists. So
I defy you to listen to Metal on Metal and not say it's one of the best metal albums you've ever heard.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Okay, thanks, Lance, for joining me. And again, I apologize to everybody for my voice. Hopefully, I'll be better next week. Thanks.
You sounded more like Lemmy. Yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully I don't get killed by death. Okay. Okay, thanks everybody for listening. Goodbye.